All right, hello everybody. So that was a little bit of a fun stuff. So I'm playing to a track, if you can't tell. I've got it right in my ears, just playing some music. There's no drums on this recording, so I get to just play whatever I want. There's some cool little hits that I get to play with the band, well, the digital band that I have going on. Pretty fun stuff. Today what I want to talk about is kind of the drums' role in music, like when playing in a band. There's a lot of cool, fun stuff we can play as drummers, but sometimes you don't play everything that you can. You don't want to do all the cool stuff that you can because then the song kind of just doesn't work very well. We always have to take into account what everybody else is doing as players, and then we get to support them. We are the support. We aren't the soloist. Now, this one had some drum feature stuff in it. I get that. It was meant to be kind of like a, here's the drums. But for the most part, when we play music as drummers, we're not the stars of the show. We're in the furthest back of the stage. We can't really move around much. We just get to sit down and have a lot of fun playing drums while helping everybody else sound even better. So kind of to give a demonstration, I'm going to play a little bit and be like, and see how it goes, and then I'm going to add a little bit of a click and add a little bit of a track and see how it sounds with the track. So here we go. This is what it sounds like just playing by myself. That's really fun stuff. Sounds really cool, but when I play it to a track, you'll notice some problems, some very quick problems. So I'm going to play real quick with a track. This will be from the same place that I got the first track. It is from this book called Tomiago's Groove Essentials. This will be Groove 1 Slow.
slow.
So if you didn't notice, it was actually kind of hard to do. I did not line up with the music at all. I sped up like crazy. And that was because I was so busy, so focused on like, oh, let's play this cool thing right here. Let's play this rhythm right here. Let's do this fill over here. You know, what can I do? What can I do? And when I was doing that, I was ignoring the rest of the band. And the band just did not sound aligned with me. It just sounded wrong. So a lot of the times as drummers, we learn a bunch of complicated, cool things, but we have to play the simple stuff too. The simple stuff is the good stuff. Some of my favorite times where I'm playing cool stuff tends to be when I'm playing easy stuff. Well, easy stuff. So I'm going to play the same exact track, and I'm going to try to actually play with the track, play what the track actually wants from me, what the music actually wants from me. So here we go.
Slow.
You kind of get the gist. I was playing really simple, really easy stuff, and it fit with the music. It actually worked. Everything kind of had a place. Even the little drum fill I did, it was super simple, but it just worked. And that's the nice thing about playing with a band or playing with other instruments going on at the same time, kind of like what I'm doing right now, playing to tracks, because you get to see what the big picture is. And usually the drums are not at the forefront of the picture. Now, this is the same whether it be in a rock band, a jazz combo, an orchestra, a wind ensemble. In fact, half the time, even in a percussion ensemble where it's all about percussion, your individual part isn't the big picture here. So that's part of why I like to play with these tracks, play with other things going on, because it really helps me figure out my role as a musician instead of just being, doing whatever I want and playing all the cool stuff. Now, learning all these facilities on the drum set, how to play all these cool rhythms, is super important. Don't get me wrong, because you can add some cool stuff in while still serving the music. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to that same track that I just did. I'm going to start it nice and simple, and I'm going to slowly add complexity to it. And you're going to see that it still has some, it still has the character of the piece, and it still fits the piece, but it's not quote unquote as boring. So here we go. I'm gonna play a little bit.
Slow.
So I started doing a bunch of other cool stuff, doing a bunch of other rhythms that were kind of fun, but it's all about trying to make sure that the song stays intact. It's all about making sure that the rest of the music makes sense. Um, with this specific song and with a lot of songs in the world, especially in America, beat 2 and beat 4 are the most important. And what that is it's whenever the snare drum plays. And it's known as the backbeat. It's the thing that everyone claps their hands to. It is kind of what everyone feels when they play it. Most every groove that I've played so far accentuates it. It kind of like emphasizes just that. So I'm going to play a little bit without a recording just to show you kind of how ingrained in this kind of music it really is. Okay, so that's kind of where it is in rock. Well, what about jazz? I mean, jazz is a different beast. It's completely different. It doesn't have all this stuff. It has its own world of language. Well, hate to break it to you, but that's exactly what the hi-hat does the entire time. Let me show you. In jazz, the hi-hat's just going all the time. It doesn't stop. It just keeps on going. And it's on 2 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, well, what about Latin music? Latin music's really weird. It's hard to understand. Yeah, Latin music is pretty weird and hard to understand sometimes, but in a lot of Latin music, they still have that. So I'll play a little bit of a basic rumba groove, and I'll probably do some other stuff with it, and you'll notice that, yeah, hi-hat's still going, nice and strong. Here we go. Yeah, that was Latin music, and it was kind of fun and kind of cool and easy to follow. Well, what if it was like super fast Latin music? I mean, they go really fast. I don't think they have time to play on 2 and 4 there. Well, let me show you. Yep, that hi-hat is still going on 2 and 4. Now, sometimes it's not as blatantly obvious, and sometimes they do have some wacky, strange stuff to it, but 2 and 4 lives in a whole ton of music. And it's really fun to play with, really fun to get used to. If you're able to keep track of 2 and 4, if you're able to keep track of where the beat is, you can play a whole lot of stuff that might be really confusing at first. So I'm going to play a little bit where it's just the hi-hat going, and I might start getting really weird and crazy on purpose just to see how far can I go before the 2 and 4 get lost. All right, here we go. Even then, my hi-hat's going strong. Maybe I messed up a little bit here and there and made it a little faster or slower, but in general, it's still there and it's still going. That's kind of how powerful this 2 and 4 really is. So, with that in mind, if you can keep that 2 and 4 going, uh, you can kind of get away with some things while you're playing music. Now, when you're playing with musicians, always play to their capabilities as well as to your own. Don't try to venture out to the edge of your capabilities and expect the rest of the band to catch you if you fall. Uh, Unless everyone is on board with that and is totally okay with that, that's a real jerk move to make. That's a great way to get an entire band upset with you. You know, why can't you just play normal? Why can't you just do a normal fill? Why can't you do something that's easier so that way I don't have to like work so hard? You know, be nice to them. They are musicians, they're humans too. Just like how drummers are not the most happy when the guitar player starts playing a beat and a half behind everybody else. We should also take into account that other people don't want to pick us up as well. Now, while we're playing, I was kind of playing in time with the beat going on in the songs. Well, just playing in time sometimes isn't good enough. Sometimes we play a little bit too in front of everybody else. Sometimes we play a little bit too behind everybody else. And what that ends up doing is it starts giving this little pull, this little push and pull. And different bands, different musicians, they can live okay in different places. Same thing with the drummer. Drummer can be further back or further forward depending on what's going on. So I'm going to play a little bit, same old track, and see if I can push and pull a little bit so you can hear the differences. All right, here we go.
Slow.
So I tried to show the difference between all three. That's why I stopped in the middle, is to stop doing one of the things and then go back and do another thing and then go back and do another thing. So at the beginning, I started right in time, and then I started moving so that I was at the front edge of the beat. I was always ever so slightly ahead of everybody else, but I was always the same amount ahead. Then what I did is I stopped playing for a second, went back to playing, and then I tried to pull back a little. So I was kind of like lagging behind everybody. Still the same distance behind, but it just felt slightly like I was pulling on everybody. And then the last time after I stopped and played again, I just played in time. I wanted to be exactly in the middle. Not fast, not slow, not ahead of everybody, not behind everybody, just right in the middle. This is really useful for different pieces because some types of music, they want the drums at the very, 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 very front. Sometimes they want it right in the middle, and then sometimes they want the drums to lay back a little bit. Super great to get used to, super great to work on. A great way to work on this is using things like a metronome. So I'm going to pull up a metronome and see if I can do this push-pull thing. So let me get my metronome going. Let's make it a little nicer. There we go. Alrighty. So that's kind of hard to do, and it takes a whole lot of practice to do. And while you get better at it, while you spend time on it, you'll get better at it, and then you can start doing that within the context of music. Anyway, I think I have a question. So the question was, do you drag everything? Do you drag just the snare? Do you drag just one part of it? And what I find is it depends on the music. So a lot of the times when you pull back, you might want to pull everything back. We were talking about how the snare drum is so important. If I just moved the snare drum, it feels like a lot of things start pulling back. Same thing with the bass drum, because we feel the bass drum. We don't necessarily hear it as easily as the snare drum, but when we feel it and it comes in a little late or comes in a little early, we kind of feel that little jolt. With the hi-hat coming slightly behind or coming slightly ahead, what that tends to do is it makes it feel like everything's slightly behind or slightly ahead. So instead of it feeling uncomfortable, it's just like the drummer has a lag, like you're on Zoom or something and you have that lag going on. So it really just depends on the song, depends on the type of music you play. A lot of the music I tend to play, I tend to be on the front edge of the beat. And then when you get into jazz, it's kind of different. Some parts got to be on the front end. Sometimes the snare drum needs to be pulled back a bit. The hi-hat needs to be like right at the front a lot of the time. When I play Latin music, a lot of basically all the drums at this point just go a little bit forward, push a little forward, kind of the same amount. When I get to Funkland, yeah, things just start changing. Different parts are behind, different parts are ahead. It's really hard to describe right now. There's a lot there. So it just depends on the style of music, just depends on what you play, what you do. So, another question. Yes, that's what they call a pocket. So the question was, is that what they call a pocket? The answer is yes. A pocket is basically the different sides of the beat, how far forward, how far behind you are on the beat. That distance between the two, what that ends up doing is now you have a space that, like, the guitar or the piano or whoever, the singer, the trumpet player, they can sit inside of the pocket. The pocket is generally created by the bass guitar and the drums, but it can be created by a bunch of other instruments. Almost always is the drums involved in creating the pocket. Very fun to play in the pocket. I don't get to do it very much, but when I do, it's really fun. It's like a giant blanket covering me. It's really nice. So let's get to a little bit more playing, shall we? So let's see here. Sometimes playing to a track that has no drums is great. Sometimes it's good to play to something that doesn't have all these tracks in the way. So I'm gonna see if I can find a good tune for us. Let's see here. Ugh, this is the worst. There we go. I think I found it. Yeah, let's listen to this song for a sec. Oh, it's not letting me play any of my songs right now. Okay, well, I guess we're not going to play any of those. How sad. I guess we'll go back to the other track. Sorry about that, everybody. I was hoping, but I guess technology has failed me. So we'll go to a different track. We'll go to this one. Kind of fun to play. And sometimes it's good to play with a drummer happening already. Sadly, my technology has failed me. So we will just play another track that has a bunch of other instruments. And now that we've talked a bunch about how these different instruments play together, how the drums are supposed to play with these different instruments, hopefully you can kind of hear some of the difference of it all. So I'm going to go get all my stuff ready real quick. Hopefully this actually plays now, and here we go.
Groove 12, fast.
So hopefully you were able to tell kind of where I was in the groove, a couple of the different things I was doing. And one thing that kind of lived in this specific song and kind of was in the first song that I played at the very beginning of this stream, there's this like breakdown section where everyone plays together. In this case, that song was like bam 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 bam, that sort of thing. It's really fun to play as a drummer. The hard part about it, though, is a lot of drummers, when they see that, they're like, oh, let's play. And then in between all the notes that everyone plays, they want to like fill it in with drum fills and stuff. And a lot of the times what happens is they'll kind of lose where the beat is, and then they start getting distracted by all that, and then they don't know where they are. And by the time they go back to playing normally, it's too late. Everyone got there before them or after them, and the jig is up. Everybody knows they were kind of off sync. So I'm going to play a little bit, same track, and when we get to that first section, I'll do like the first one in time, and then I'll start doing some things out of time, and you'll kind of hear what I mean. So here we go.
Groove 12, fast.
Going back to the very beginning, playing anything you want, not always the best answer. So first one was right in time, just like I said it was going to be. And then after that, I just started playing, and I was like trying to hit the hits while playing all these notes, and it just wasn't working out, and I was actually slow. I was slowing down because I was trying to cram all these notes into such a short amount of time. I just didn't have time to play all the notes. So I just made time, which you can't do with the band. So by the time I got back to the groove part of this thing, I was like a whole beat and a half behind. So we really, that's part of why we got to think a little simpler. Anyway, I got a question. Who's in charge of time? Oh, that is a great question. So the answer that a lot of people think is the drum set. The answer that some people say is the bass guitar, which is slightly more correct. The real answer is every single individual in the band. So that means that the drums need to never lose time. That means that the guitar cannot lose time. That means that the piano can't lose time, the bass, anything. The singer, everybody has to be held accountable for their own time. Now, when it comes to the most noticeable and the people who have the highest chance of taking everything off the rails, it's probably the drummer. And then one thing that I've been blamed for before is it was the bass player, and the drummer got called out for it, even though the bass player was the one who derailed it. Because the bass player has a whole ton of power in a band. So much power. So much power, in fact, that if they make mistakes, they might bring the drummer down, and when they bring the drummer down, they bring everybody down. The bass guitar is kind of like the bridge between the drums and the rest of the band. Because the drums, we speak rhythm. We don't really play individual notes like a melody too much. I mean, it's kind of hard. We've got like, let's see here. Yeah, we've got like 4 notes, maybe a little bit more. Yeah, we've got a few more notes than that, but not a whole lot of notes in there. The bass guitar, I mean, they're a full melodic instrument, but they're in charge of the groove. If these tracks had no bass guitar in it while I'm playing, it kind of like defeats the whole situation. It just doesn't sound good. So, yeah. Oh, another question here. So if the guitar player ends up rushing, what is the best thing to do? Well, if it's just the guitar player, you let him do it, and you just stay solid with the rest of the band. One thing that musicians like to do, especially when they get stronger with their sense of time, is they'll start pushing and pulling, kind of like how we were doing with the metronome earlier. They start pushing and pulling on the beat, and sometimes they get so far in front or so far back that it's just really hard to see like what's going on. So what they'll end up doing is the rest of the band will just be like, okay, just hold steady. And the guitar player, he might finally finish whatever he's doing, and he'll be like, oh, that's where the beat is. And then he'll like sync back up with everybody. Trying to follow one person down the rabbit hole can lead to a train wreck. Everyone just slowly gets faster and faster and faster and faster until you get to parts that you just can't play anymore because it's too fast for you. Or in the same way, slower. It can get slower and slower and slower. Back when I was a weaker drummer, that was my biggest issue, was actually playing in time. I would play a song and I'd be like, "Oh yeah, I'm really into this tune," and then I would just speed up, maybe 20%, 30%, sometimes 40% faster than what the song started at. It was real bad, especially when it came to slow tunes. Oh my goodness. When I played something that was slow, I just could not for the life of me stay in time. So actually what I should do right now is I should play a little bit slower music for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play another track, and it'll be a little bit slower, but it's going to be a very different beast. When it's faster, you can kind of make mistakes and nobody will notice. When you get slower, everybody has time to listen. So if you make a mistake, it's a lot easier for everybody to be like, "Oh, that note wasn't supposed to be there," or something along those lines. So here we go. I'm going to play a nice slow track for you.
Slow.
So there you have it, a nice slow funk groove. There's a whole lot more space there, whole lot more room for error. Question over here. So on slow tunes, do you play behind the beat more often? And on fast tunes, do you tend to play in front of the beat more often? In general, when I'm playing with a band, that's more often the case because when playing a slow tune, everybody wants to speed up. Not just the drums, everybody. That space is deadly. And so we want to cover up that space, being like, oh, we have a chance to make a mistake here. Let's just make it shorter and shorter and shorter. And pretty soon, that tune that I just played might be half as fast or twice as fast as it just was. So I generally play a little bit more behind the beat when it's a slower tune. And then when it comes to faster tunes, it's the same thing but opposite. So everybody knows it's fast. Everybody feels it's fast. So a lot of the times, everybody tries to slow down. Now, I want to keep the energy up, and so I try to stay at the front edge of the beat, so that way the energy is there, and it also helps combat the slowing down problem. It also helps me personally combat the slowing down problem, because some things are fast enough that I just do not want to get to the tempo that it is. I want to slow down. And so that's kind of what I end up doing. Now, with the space, especially in this track that I just played, there was a spot where the bass guitar didn't play at all. Now, what that does is it frees up me to do kind of whatever I want with my bass drum. The bass drum and the bass guitar are kind of connected together. They're like a team. Way back when, in the jazz bands, there's like 18, 20 musicians all on the stage playing music. There's the trumpets, which are really loud. There's the trombones. They're also really loud. There's the saxophones, and there's like 4 or 5 of each of these on the stage. Then you have the piano, which at this point in time, the piano has found ways to get nice and loud, nice and full. And then we have drums, which, if you haven't heard them ever, they are quite loud. They are very, like, I almost don't need to be mic'd whenever I go to a gig. They're so loud. But then you have the bass guitar, which the bass guitar lives in an orchestra most of the time. And in orchestras, there's like 6 or 8 of them because they just cannot cut through so many other instruments. Well, this was back before microphones and speakers existed. So what they ended up doing is they charged the bass drum, the drummer, to play their bass drum with the bass guitar to give it that little extra punch to be heard. So now the bass drum punches through the sound, and then the bass guitar gives that sound a tone, so that way it actually sounds like a walking bass line. Ba-doom, boom, 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 that sort of thing. So that's kind of why this bass drum has historically, culturally, been paired up with the bass guitar. In a lot of these songs, if you haven't listened, I'm kind of subconsciously following what the bass drummer or bass guitar player is doing. Now, in this section where there is no bass guitar, I now don't have to follow the bass guitar player and try to match up with him. Instead, this time around, for the most part, I played almost no bass drum. Since there's no bass guitar player, I was like, well, maybe we don't need a bass drum either. It definitely led for a very different texture. Cool. So all this stuff is great. All this stuff is useful. Playing to recordings is super fun. Learning what your tendencies are as a musician is very important. So that way when you do play with a band, hopefully someday when that happens, when things get opened up and I get to play with musicians again, that'd be so great. When that happens, I will be a little bit better so that I can support them. I will be able to listen better. I will be able to get my stuff together, my preparation together, so that way I am no longer the one pulling everyone down in skill level. So, without further ado, I'm going to say a couple thanks, and then I'm going to play a little and call it a day. So, first thank you is to the Brewery Arts Center again for letting me put on this stream. It's really fun. My next thanks is to Katie Sound Co. I have Kelly Dodge over here running sound for all of these microphones, and he's also the one who's been giving me some questions as they come up, as he has questions for me, or as other people have questions. I don't know, there's like 4 or 5 different, I don't know even how it works, but there's multiple streams happening of the same thing. So thanks for playing with me or listening with me, and I will see you guys next time.
Groove 12, fast.